So tree warden we have here, 2014 was $10,000 last year, or this current year rather, $8,000. We have a new tree warden. He actually provided us a complete diagram and breakdown of all the trees. He plans to do 7 trees this year. I can show you that briefly so everyone has the same image in their head. So you have category of tree removal, traffic control, tree replanting, continuing education, which is just a side piece, and administrative and advertising costs, all totaling $8,470, and that is $470 from more than last year. So we thought that is very reasonable, very well thought out budget, exact numbers. We were inclined to put it in as 8,470 for tree warden. Any questions on tree warden?
That's good.
Excellent. So veterans agent is the next piece. This one's a little harder because not all the information is etched in stone. But one of the benefits of this budget is we do get back from certain expenses and all benefits 75% of whatever we spend. And we are mandated by the state to fund certain pieces here. So we have the first thing, which is the veterans agent salary. In FY13, he was at $7,064. FY14, $7,581. FY15, $7,604. This is the guy you often see in the office at night in the room, or he comes in the morning, or he pays his own cell phone. So he actually buys a separate cell phone just for the purposes of handling veterans' calls. We don't reimburse him for any of that. So based on all that information, we thought it would be wise to recommend $8,000 for his salary, which is a $396 increase.
It's a stipend.
Stipend, but it's the line's called the salary.
I know, I'm just making it clear, it's stipend versus stuff.
He does a lot of work on his own time when he's free from work and all that kind of
He
stuff.
took time off, personal time from his job to drive to Boston, which he didn't reimburse us for mileage. I mean, didn't ask for reimbursement for mileage. I mean, he didn't even brag about it. He didn't even ask for it, you know, like.
So on veterans' expenses, a lot of which have to do with the cost of flags for Memorial Day and other related costs, he requested $471. In the past, we funded him at $296, $349, and $200 as of this year. So we have increased it to $600, which is a $400 increase from last year. Mind you again that the flags for Memorial Day we've put into this budget, so in addition to the rest of the expenses, he needs to have enough to purchase the flags, which he estimated at approximately $200. Again, it's the best location to put the flags for Memorial Day because we get reimbursed 75% the following year. Next line down is veterans benefits. Veterans benefits are unlike any other category we have. I guess if it had to be equated to one, I'd say it would be closer to the health insurance piece because it just depends. He gave us a calculation based on approximate number of families or number of veterans he's assisting, which could at times be up to 5. Calculated their average per month and went out from there. It fluctuates if someone moves out of town. We no longer are on the hook for their veterans benefits and they see the next community that they're in. If they move into town, we pick up their case right away so our numbers can bounce. Our prediction, or our best guess of where we should be, was we wanted to level fund from this year based on the amount of money that has currently been spent so far. So he requested $40,000 and we have put into fund for $35,600. Going down to the very bottom, that summarizes the budget at $43,600, which is an overall increase of $396 from last year. Are there any questions on veterans? Beautiful. The very last one I have for this evening, before we go back to problems, if that's the desire of the board. If not, I would vote against it. So we have the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals. They have one line with us, which is the Zoning Board of Clerical Wages. If you recall, back when we were talking about the Planning Board, we were talking about the fact that they have a revolving account. ZBA as well has a revolving account. When asked what the purpose of the clerical wages line was, it was to handle mailings, notifications to abutters, and the like. We actually had I had a conversation with the chair of ZBA yesterday, and we've talked previously with other people who have experience with this piece. All the other departments that essentially require abutters notifications, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, all put the burden on the applicant to do all the mailings, which reduces our cost significantly. We don't believe it's necessarily a problem. He'll let us know if it is, if we have to by law do it for them. Otherwise, we funded this line at zero. Again, we were only piecemeal funding it anyway because they had a revolving account where all their fees were going into. So this is a $200 reduction. Actual costs in FY14 from this line were $286.52. The budget this year is $200. None of it's been spent thus far because they haven't hired anyone. And the requested $200, our recommended is zero. That is the last item I have on my change list of things we've done. All yours.
Do you want to talk about the police department, the park commission, and the cemetery commission so that we can make sure that we have all of the appropriate questions? Or, yes, or would the board prefer to take the suggestions from the finance committee and finance teams and let that be it?
I think there's some provocative questions there, so.
So let's start with the police department. The police department. I'll just find the right page. You don't want to go through this, huh, Heather? You're going to leave it up to me now?
Well, I feel that we're at the point where unless the board has any questions.
There's not even any recommended numbers on this sheet.
There are in the major budget, but they're not in this. At this point, the fire department and the police department have been level funded exactly from whatever they asked for last year, exact line by line by line. That is what they requested of us, with the exception of the fire department asking for more for the second shift. So we went back and level funded it to last year with line by line by line. So unless these questions have been answered that something needs to change, that's how we have submitted our recommendation in the major line-by-line account number budget.
A question on the police budget. Last year, I believe we transferred $33,000 from operational stabilization?
Yes, when he was asked to level fund, he was asked to level fund prior to that transfer.
Okay, so it's level funded without that 33. Okay.
Mhm.
And about the deck on the ambulance, we transferred $43,000 last year.
So
So
essentially, that's one person.
he's not looking at getting that transfer again as part of the budget process, as far as you know?
We asked him to provide us a level funded budget based on the number we funded him at prior to any transfers.
Okay, thanks.
So some of the questions that have come up are, and we talked to the police chief about the Quinn bill, part of the, well, in their contract, the Quinn bill is in there. What did I say?
Well, not every, like,
Not the chief.
Not the chief,
Please,
so,
yeah.
right, so one of the conversations we have is do you cut that part? It's a
We're talking
one,
about the police chief's
the
Quinn
police
portion?
chief's Quinn bill,
Okay.
and that would save $20,000. Can you we need to make sure that we're renegotiating that stuff in their contract this year, which is up.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Quinn bill on the chief's end has been in there since he's had the job. And that's over several years. To abruptly try to remove that, I think, without a discussion of changing his salary or something like that, or having a discussion with him, I don't think that's fair.
So you want to talk about it with the chief,
I think
I
we
guess,
do talk
and
about
that's
it.
fine, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think changing, and what Janet said, is he doesn't have a contract, he should have a contract, and part of the contract negotiations to find some middle ground where the educational incentive, the Quinn bill, is done away with, but we adjust the salary, so, I mean, $20,000 is $20,000. And, but, you know, by getting a contract, we can get maybe a compromise in there to what his salary would be comparable. And we'd have to look into neighboring towns like, you know, Granby and stuff like that to see what are off the, even
We
their
also got to
website.
take in consideration years of service as a chief.
Yeah,
If you have a chief that's only 1 year in town and comparing it,
no,
it's not the same thing.
no, it's not, but I think you level years of funding, of service. So I think, you know, when we address the Chief's Quinn portion as it's listed here as question. I think the real question is to negotiate with the chief with a contract, and I think you should probably put that on the agenda to develop that.
So after looking at the budget and looking at the budget recommendations, are there any other recommendations or questions that you would like answered before we meet with him next week?
I would like to know what his feelings are on Quinville, whether you rank and file.
In the earlier question, it came up about the traffic tickets and the revenue decline. Just,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Because in conjunction with that, we're getting, let me say, $13,000 less in court fees back. So we're saving how much in gas to lose how much money? It may, yeah.
One of the things he said was part of his staffing levels were such because one officer or lieutenant goes to court every day, or he has to be in court quite a bit. But the court fines don't say that. And I thought that the arresting attorney had to be the one that went to.
Officer? You said attorney.
Attorney, thank you. The arresting officer, I was late. Arresting officer had to be the one to appear in court.
You're right, but they
And
both
so
go.
That's, but he
They
said
both
it's like
go.
the same person went to court all the time, so I
So
was a
two
little
people,
confused.
we pay for two people to go to court.
Well, I think if it's an arrest versus a routine, there's routine stuff that has to go back and forth through the DA. But I think that the accusing officer, in most cases,
They
maybe
have to.
a DWI or something like that has to be there. I'm not saying they have to be there on everyone, but I think on certain ones they do. And I'm not professing to know their job.
But that's a
I
question we
believe that
we
certain
could
times
ask.
calls for, because they gotta buy they gotta buy suits and stuff that comes out of their expenses to go to court. And I think you see that in the expenditures on all the officers.
That's part of the
That's
contract.
part of the
Part
contract.
of the
Right.
contract.
Now, if you want to look at his expenses, he isn't even 50% spent yet for this year. So he isn't using it on gas, because, he hasn't been going out to use it on gas, because there's almost $30,000 in there.
So-
Well,
Which is a lot.
I'm sure he's gotta do qualifications for all the officers with the pistols, and that's a lot of ammunition, it's a lot of money. I'm not defending him, but I think you'll see that when the weather get better.
So how do you,
It's usually toward the end of the year.
I think that his statement to us was that he reduced his expenses in order to meet the budget requirements, and that's why the revenues are down.
so how do you evaluate a police department? How do you evaluate it?
I think it works for you, how do you do it?
Well, I'm asking, it's just a general question. Do you evaluate by number of tickets?
I can tell you, because I work with a lot of officer incidences, it's data.
Right, no, that's what I'm trying to get.
So,
It's more than money, it's stuff,
incidents, arrests,
break-ins, how, the number of break-ins up, are there more?
per capita to officer,
Yeah.
Question
Question
for
three
you.
kind of alludes to that with obtaining call volume data. We did
Right.
the same exercise with the fire department to figure out how many
Calls for
ambulance
fire.
versus how many fire calls, just to kind of get a feel for, you have so many EMT certified staff, you have so many firefighters, how does that break out? So the call volume, I guess, is the first step in that.
Right.
But also quality of life, are break-ins up, or stolen cars up, that kind of stuff.
My guess is he
property
has
damage.
all that information at his fingertips, and he should bring it with him.
So the FBI doesn't even have the data.
But I'm just saying, that's how you would say, how good is our police department? How well are they protecting the citizens? And I don't know how you quantify
And
that.
I think that you also want to look at number of staff per per person. Like, I asked my sister's brother-in-law, who's this officer in Belchertown, I said, how many staff do you have? He said they have 20, basically, I figured it out. They have like one officer for 800 people, and we have one officer for every 300 people.
Is that
So-
one full-time, or are you talking part-time, because you
That
can't
was-
equate.
That was full-time. I just did full-time.
So we have 10, we have
We have
9
10
officers,
full-time,
and
we
we
have
have
10
6,
part-time, and they have 20.
and there's 6,000 people, so that's like every 600.
They have Belchertown has 13,000.
How many full-timers? 10?
10.
We have 10
Including the
full-time.
police chief.
And how many
Including-
part-timers?
10.
10.
10. And Belchertown has 20 full-time and 8 part-time.
Those part-timers are filling a shift, so you gotta equate them by shift,
Right.
And you still have so many shifts a week that you have to fill, regardless of how many people you
But
get in town.
basically, how you would evaluate them is you would look at the data, you look at the number of incidences, the number of tickets, the number of arrests.
Are there any other questions people have for the police chief to make sure that they're answered?
The question on the 911 incentive grant, that's, they get a grant for the communications, and Vicky doesn't have any of the materials to know, like, and they're sitting on, was it $21,000? So I think, I suspect they're spending down the general fund instead of hitting the grant. So like, we're spending general fund, we're not spending the grant.
Can I
So we're
ask,
sitting on cash.
1,870.
was that to upgrade the dispatchers so they could do,
No, that's
No,
advanced
it's
now.
it's the 911 incentive grant, it's just the typical, I mean, like, we're giving back DOJ money, is it $1,800? Like, we're giving back money because they didn't spend it, they probably hit the general fund and didn't hit the grant. And we're gonna, like, luckily with the incentive grant, you can roll it over, but just for so long, and then we have to give the money back, and it could have went to free cash.
So we want to make sure he brings all the information for that grant with him.
Heather, are you giving the chief the questions and let him know? Good. I don't want him to come in and say he didn't know.
Are there any others?
I agree with that. You should know all this.
Yeah, Francine?
I would word these questions a little bit differently before I give them to anybody to respond to them.
Yes.
Well, the only thing is, this is a public document now, so that's what it is.
Well, it's still what I would deliver to them would be.
Different.
But Dr. McDougall's right, you're both right. Future, going forward, it's a public document, it's out
So-
there now, but in the future, maybe
There's
have
a
conversations
question
with people
that
that
you have for, she's talking, I'm sorry.
be a little softer.
There's a question in here about, I think it's number 8, paid vacation should be equal to all towns. I think they negotiated that in their contract.
It is in their contract, they're open.
So, you know, contract is different than,
But we're in the process of negotiating that.
Yeah, we are.
So it's
We
just
are.
a suggestion.
we wanted to
you know, okay.
We're trying to do all three contracts at the same time, but they're playing cat and mouse with us. We keep asking the police department to come over, let's negotiate when we get going, but they're waiting for what we're doing with the highway, and so it's really, they're playing games at this point, it seems. They won't both come to the table at the same time.
The other major issue comes down to mowing options, and I guess
So you're also the police?
I'm all set with the police. And, you know, I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion about that tonight. So if you could read those notes, and if you have any others. Are there any other questions anybody would like to discuss this evening?
Can I just make one point about the whole mowing thing?
Yes.
Quickly. You know, we, as a group, the whole town has been talking about transparency. I don't think if you stiff it all into one account, you're being that transparent into what it costs to mow the park, what it costs to mow the cemetery,
Right, I agree.
or the library, or whatever. You're not being very transparent. You're trying to hide it into one account to say, oh, well, we're just gonna mow here, and we're not gonna tell you how much it costs to mow everything. You know what I mean? It's not
Well,
being as transparent as I think we should be. but
Quite
that's my personal
honestly,
opinion.
the cemetery should be part of this mowing.
It is,
Yeah,
it
the
is.
cemetery, the
Okay.
library,
And-
the parks.
It is,
But
they both
does the
have the same
cemetery
issues.
contribute to the mowing?
Yes.
I do have a question.
Because they have perpetual care, and they were supposed to take care of that. The perpetual care accounts are for mowing and upkeep of the grounds. That's all it's supposed to be used for.
That didn't come out.
And that cost should be a real cost for the cemetery, not Randall and the highway department picking up the difference.
Correct.
And they've been doing that for years, and I know that, I did it.
Yes,
I did that at the parks, and I did
and
that,
that's the discussion that.
That's the
I did that
discussion.
at the town hall. I mean, there's a lot of things that they do that are not incorporated in that.
No, and I guess I'm, personally, it's a cleaner slate. If he mows for the cemetery, he should charge the cemetery directly those wages.
Right.
It should be cleaner that way.
But they were requesting $8,000 to $10,000 more in their budget to pay for the mowing.
Right.
You're saying they can take that out of perpetual
You should
care.
have access to perpetual care, and the definition of perpetual care is the upkeep of the grounds around each stone. And each individual pays for that,
That's what
you know. And they like to keep that money, but on the other hand, it should be used for one particular purpose.
Who elected, I'm sorry, who elected to keep the money? The cemetery commission?
Yeah, they,
Is it in a revolving fund?
No, they don't, they hold on to it pretty tight, let's put it that way.
It's in a trust.
It's in a And trust funds.
I do have a general question for you guys. So what do you think of the process this year?
I'm interested to hear from those on the finance committee in past years about how this process is going at the same question.
How do you think this year is gone compared to years past?
Well, I think this was, for me, much more intense, much more enlightening, much better organized. I mean, we had someone, I mean, Heather did a great job, and Vicki, bringing information to us, of helping organize it so that it was something that we could digest. It's a lot of information.
And I would say there's a lot more meetings this year that we attended, whether it was, we couldn't have a quorum at all of them because we are on the finance team, but all the finance team, we have invested.
Did you ever get all the grants and information you wanted?
No. We got one.
One.
I have some that I didn't make copies for you guys yet, but I do have some.
Good.
I do
But
have
the
some.
other thing is, having gone through this process, I think there are some other very strong recommendations that we would want to make to the select board, and hope that you would support us. I mean,
Well, that was going to be my next question. How can this be better? How can this be better? I mean, how would you make it better, Francine?
Well, we,
There's interdepartmental efficiencies and things, and just, you look at other towns, the way they operate, the way they utilize clerks and admins, and, combining departments, maybe not on paper, but, combining your admin to help out in different areas,
Okay.
costs.
So some cost savings by sort of consolidation?
It's just different departments, and, one thing I noticed that I thought is kind of alarming is you're setting yourself up for a pitting of public safety versus education in the town, and maybe it's always been this way.
It's always been that way.
Okay, that's fine.
It's in other municipalities too.
So that's what, it comes down to the teachers, the kids are in the school 180 days, so many hours a day, but then the kids are in the town 24/7, 365, and you really have to take the village outlook, and knowing that they're gonna be at war with each other, and our job is to sort of keep all the siblings playing nice, to do the same tasks that we're all trying to do with taking care of the kids. It's not easy.
So my only other question is that, you had come to us and said, can you make sure that we're present for these conversations? And I'm hoping that this is not good enough, but the right start, so that any other conversations going forward, you guys are invited and welcome, and hopefully.
And I just, in days past, the finance has always been a stepping stone to come to this table.
A stepping stone to sit up here.
Stepping stone to come to this table.
except Liz.
I got a comment.
Well, Liz was president all the way.
Ed Batchel.
Well, John has a question before we adjourn.
Everyone thinks
It's not really a question, having come from the finance committee end of it. What I see, a huge difference is we got a willing, able, full-time town administrator that coordinates. Everybody else is volunteer. And I think she's done a great job of it. She's been here less than a year. Not to take away from the other people, but you need somebody full-time to coordinate and get Vicki involved, get Donna involved. So I think kudos to you.
She made it easier compared to last year to get information.
Yeah.
Whereas we struggled with departments to
Struggle,
provide
yeah.
us with information.
That's why, yeah.
Because she was here all day, when we decided and you guys agreed to let her handle that part, we come to the table and she hands it to us, and people have already given it to her. So we're actually reviewing it, not struggling to find it.
And she views it as part of her job to help other people, where in the past we haven't had that.
Francine?
I just wanted to just add, Vicki's also should get
Absolutely.
recognition.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Maybe a certain format, she went ahead and she did it, which made it much more comprehensible for us. I mean, dealing with,
Well, it seems like a cohesive team this year.
Yes.
so I
All
think,
over.
overall, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Very
definitely
good.
improvements for next year.
The what?
So there's definitely improvements.
Oh, absolutely. but
Right.
You could probably streamline it a little bit better now that you get a better handle on it.
Just one thing, just to remind folks, so we're getting closer to May. I'd like to, if we can, have the budget wrapped up at the end of April, finalized, formalized, everything, so we have the opportunity to have public meetings and have public comment. My suggestion for the board was that once the board decides where they want to go with the budget, that they actually open it up to public comment, because maybe there are, maybe the Board of Assessors would like to talk about one thing, or maybe a resident down the street's really concerned about the schools or street lighting or park, whatever it is. But that way you get the public more involved and more engaged in the budget process up front, rather than waiting till we get to town meeting and sitting there and going through hundreds of questions, because people don't know.
You're gonna have that.
It's true you will, but you can cut it down, because some people who are more active and more likely to ask the question anyway, oftentimes will come to one of these meetings and say, here's my question. Plus, I don't think it's a bad idea to start the formalized process. They've been doing it in other communities for years, and it seems to work for them. Maybe it's like anything else. You only get a small attendance the first year or two, but by year 5, everyone knows it's coming.
Janet?
Yes, I just wanted to also comment, and Liz, your attendance at all these meetings, you work full-time, you have a family, you are at so many meetings, and you are proving that this select board position is more than
Let me help you.
a couple of.
Thank you.
But I would agree with Heather of having some open public, because you don't want someone to change any of these on the town floor and be totally like surprised by that, and
Right.
then it actually passes, and then we're stuck with an unbalanced budget.
Right.
So to get those questions out in
Well,
front.
one year we had someone stand up and they got 2.5 override to balance the budget for the school, it was $998,000 or something like that.
Something like that.
Of course, it failed, and they had to take $98,000 out of the general fund. That happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, that thing could
Say it
happen
loud.
if you could
I
try.
make a motion to
have,
adjourn.
you know,
Is there a second? Anybody want to discuss that? All in favor?
Okay, meeting
Aye.
candidates night, April 27th.
Thank you.